Legend has it that lightning struck an agave plant, which was then found by local indigenous people who were enticed to try it because of the sweet aromas that came from it. Upon eating it, they realized what a delicacy they had discovered, and so they decided to replace the process with fire, a process they succeed in very well. On various occasions, they cook agave fermented, causing those who consumed it to get dizzy, a sensation that they claim connected them with the spirit and produced sensation in them hitherto unknown. In Durango, and in most of the places where mezcal is produced, the maguey or agave is known as mezcal. The first distillation of the fermented juice is called wine water. The second is referred to as mezcal wine. Therefore, when you hear people say that this year there will be a lot of mezcal, it means that there will be a lot of agave or maguey to produce mezcal. The beginning. At Apaluz, we are well aware that if we don't take care of the environment, we will not have enough agave plants to produce mezcal for the future generations. For this reason, we are germinating and planting agave plants in new areas on land set aside for mezcal productions. It takes about 8 kilograms of agave pineapple to produce 1 liter of mezcal.
Mira, por ejemplo, acá están los nopales y los quiotes del agave, y aquí atrás tenemos lo que viene siendo la vinata. De este lado también se aprecia la presa, y por aquí pasa el manantial que lleva el agua hacia la vinata, que es agua natural 100%, y es una fábrica totalmente artesanal, y utilizamos la materia prima que es de agave silvestre cenizo.
The amount of work that goes into the harvesting of one agave pineapple is hard to fathom without having seen it on self. For example, before the one is able to harvest the agave, it must be allowed to reach its reproductive stage, which is when the quiote or flower stem begins to emerge. If one doesn't cut this quiote, within months it will produce flowers, the seeds of which will spread far and wide in winter months for new generations, and the original plant will die. For this reason, our team of agave castrators is trained to leave the best agave to flower and propagate the biological cycle on the species. The rest of the agave that are selected for the production of a mezcal have their quiote cut, and then it can take up to 3 additional years before they are ready to be harvested. It is well known that when an agave is left for at least 1 year after removing the quiote, it yields more and better use for mezcal. We have to use donkeys to be able to get the agave of the mountains, since the agave plants are situated in very remote areas where trucks doesn't enter. The cortadores or harvesters take up to 4 days to gather enough agave to fill the banking pit. Once harvested, the banking pit, which is lined with volcanic rock, is filled with oak and mesquite firewood, locally known as huizache. The fire is maintained for 6 hours until the banking pit is perfectly filled, and then volcanic stone is added on top of the coals to absorb and to help maintain the heat. Once the pit is ready, the agave pulp from the last batch is thrown on top of the hot rocks and coals so that the fresh agave doesn't burn when coming in contact with the stone. Then the agave pencas or leaves are added on top of the mountain of the agave, and then pencas are covered with cotton blankets and river soil.
Now we are cooking the agave, and this process is about taking for 3 days to cook the agave, and this is how we do it.
Once covered, it is monitored for 24 hours to make sure that the covering stays in place while still allowing enough oxygen to maintain the coals for properly banking the agave pineapples. After approximately 4 days, the banking pit is uncovered and the cooked pineapples are removed to proceed to the next step of fine chopping, which is done manually with an axe. The small fermentation tanks in the floor are then filled with the chopped pulp, and warm spring water from our local mountain spring is added. The spontaneous fermentation from local juice then begins almost immediately. And after approximately 3 days, the fermentation is complete and the juice, with all the pulp still in it, is ready for distillation. It is poured into the copper still that is heated with oak and mesquite wood, and little by little, the first distill, which we in Durango call agua vino or water wine, comes out. The pulp is then removed from the still, which is then cleaned, and the water wine of the first distill is added back to it. Little by little, the mezcal comes out, what we in Durango call wine of mezcal, and we separate heads and tails from the hair. The hair we bottle of our mezcal, and the heads and tails we use to clean the equipment such as axes, shovels, pitchforks, and tongs. Once the batch is complete, the mezcal is homogenized and left to the desired degree of alcohol by adding triple distilled water. The sample is sent to the laboratory for analysis, and if it complies with the parameters stipulated by the NOM, which stands for Norma Oficial Mexicana, which is the Mexican denomination of origin of our mezcal, the filtering begins, which guarantees the removal of any impurities and makes the mezcal more brilliant. At Apaluz, the human element is very important to us, and that is why we prefer to depend on our local people as well as our donkeys for every step of the process, rather than to bring in sophisticated equipment to replace them. Even the bottling and labeling is all done by hand, making the entire process of Apaluz mezcal almost identical in every aspect to the way it was done by our great-grandfather Don Jesús Burciaga Martínez in 1862, and by all his descendants to our day. We hope you have enjoyed this video and that you are able to enjoy a genuine artisan mezcal made by our hands from the wild endemic agave of Durango. Salud!